This is the threat that Vicky recorded about 6 minutes and something of, that Jesus, the meth dealer, that Fredericksburg Road and Vance Jackson Road was his territory, where he lived behind the Goodwill, I'm sorry, not Goodwill, he lived behind the Dollar Tree and Melrose store, beside Aaron's across from Spanish Walking Trails. He lived behind there in a tent. He had been told numerous times to leave that area, and eventually they just busted him for trespassing. Back in July, I caught him trying to sell meth to two 15-year-old boys. I told them to go home. I told him to get out of the property. He'd already been banned and barred from the property, yet he just continued to come in using the gate code to get in. And I've told them numerous times to change that gate code. And over the last 8 months of me telling them that the drug dealers are using the gate code to come in, well, they haven't changed it. It's still the same code. So I'm going to start this. It's a poor recording. You can make out some of what he's saying. I was on the phone. I'll tell you, this is a couple days after I told him to get out of the property. He was coming back in the property, and he walked underneath my balcony. My balcony window or balcony door was open, and I heard someone screaming at me, threats. And I was on the phone with my, at that time, fiance. We got married by the law in August, but screaming threats at me from underneath my window. When I went outside to look, there was nobody there, because he'd gone on past and was walking towards the side where the exit gate is. But he was going in somewhere to sell meth to somebody. And I went downstairs, still on the phone with Vicky, with my Mexico phone, and he saw me because he was coming around the other end of the far end of the building. There was a guy that was with him that had a knife, and a big knife, and he saw me and listened to what Jesus started screaming at me. They call him Chewy. Jesus, or Chewy, started yelling, screaming at me, and I asked Vicky to start recording on her end. So she put her phone on speakerphone, and she took her dad's phone and recorded it. And then she sent it to me by WhatsApp. And this is what she recorded. This is about 6 minutes or 7 minutes of her recording. You can't hear a whole lot, but he does threaten my life at least a dozen times. Says he's going to come and kill me. And then he said he was going to take his knife and fillet me. And if you can make that out, when he says he's going to take his knife and fillet me, he reached for his bag. I would have been justified right then to put him out of his misery, but I didn't. I just kept recording. I just kept the phone open so that I wanted to get as much of this as I possibly could. And it was after this that I called the police. I called 911. An officer came, and I made a police report to the 2 officers that came. And if you look through the list of the videos that I have, you'll see a multitude of videos, not all of which I posted. I have a multitude of them saved. and many of them posted to YouTube, and just the ones that are public are the ones that you can see. Okay, having been through something, people threatening my life in another state, those same people, my father went from 4 states away down there to investigate it, and they shot him in the head and killed him. And then they threatened my brother and his wife to change their story about them being at work, coming home and finding Dad dead in his car. They didn't even let my dad get out of his car. They killed him in his car. I'm not playing games. I deal with threats against me with an extremely heavy hand. And I was informed by federal law enforcement to get as much video of his threats against me as I possibly could. And I kid you not, every time that guy saw me, he would rattle another threat off at me. He'd ride back and forth in front of my house, flipping me off, throwing gang sign at me, trying to fight with me, trying to incite me to fight, and the only thing I would do is pull out my phone and start recording. So the rest of this, it's at 6:30, 6 minutes and 30 seconds on my recording right now. Okay. I'm going to play it in its entirety. I had set the phone down on the steps because he was getting ready to hit me.
Hello? Hello?
She wasn't supposed to talk. She was supposed to just record.
Is there any way you can call the cops, or do you want me to do it from here? Huh? Call the cops.
Record, Vicky. That was your instructions.
Phil, just call the cops.
Shut up. Just record.
Okay. Call me right back.
You heard everything, right?
Yes, I recorded it.
You recorded it,
Yes. Right now it is 7:09. I was on a call with my fiance Philip, and somebody just came and was talking bad words, mouthing him really bad. And I recorded it here. I'm in Mexico, but I recorded it as it was going on because we were on the phone. All of a sudden, this guy just comes in, bursting crap on him. So that's why I started recording.
Okay, that's the end of it. That's the end of the recording. It was 7 minutes and 3 seconds long for the recording. She was under orders to just record. Okay, then she started at somewhere around the 5-minute mark, started butting in, talking, and covering up some of what was being said by Chewy. When I got off the phone, I got off the phone with Vicky right after all that tirade, and then he left. He did leave, though. That's the good thing. I mean, I didn't care. He left. Then my neighbor in 1806, he came down and said, yeah, I was watching out for you, and just in case he jumped on you, I was watching out the window. I was watching out for you. Well, now that neighbor in 1806 won't have a thing to do with me. He and his wife are both as rude as can be towards me, and I know why. And it has to do with the people that murdered my father have found out where I'm at. And but that's okay. I've got it handled now. All I was waiting for was for them to screw up like they just did and start this thing up again. With me being across state lines, it's going to be bad for all of them. And I guess San Antonio Police Department is being made to look pretty bad because they're not doing anything about the drug problem. In this neck of the woods. And I'm posting videos of threats being made to me. I posted a video of the police arriving 2 hours and 10 minutes after a man was making terroristic threats, causing a woman and her 12-year-old daughter to lock themselves in the women's bathroom at the Burger King across the street. And I posted that video. And the fact that I'm dealing with federal law enforcement instead of the city law enforcement, the San Antonio Police Department is, I don't know, I guess they're embarrassed and they're maybe vengeful against me. And they've come into this place and have slandered me, and the slander has gone past the person that they told into the public, and that's why my neighbor won't even talk to me now. Well, it's going to be handled with an extremely heavy hand. I'm lawyering up again. Last time I lawyered up was in that other state to sue the people that were slandering me. I did not know this, but the woman assistant to the attorney that I went to that assistant happened to be the wife of an attorney who lost his license for stealing $500 from me. Which, you know, the state forced him to give it back to me, and he lost his license for a year and had to go through drug rehab. He calls it a medical condition. Yeah, it was your choice to snort coke, you dummy. Okay, well, those people, that assistant turned the lawyer that I went to against me, taking the email that they told me to send to them and using it against me. They went to the people that were slandering me and got them to hire that attorney, and that assistant coached them on what to say and what to do to make the most damage against me they could possibly do. And the threats got out in the public, the slander got out in the public because of them. And my life was threatened at every turn. That lawyer that I went to, her husband was a deputy sheriff. He made a threat against me that he was going to pull me over, shoot me, and then plant a gun on me. And I sent a message back to him through the person that told me, he better kill me. And I made his threat to me very public so that everybody knew that he had threatened me. So that he couldn't do it. If he was going to do it, he would have gone straight to prison. And these people had access to create a false file against me. Which that false file, I'm starting as of now. That's my New Year's resolution, to get this thing turned around on the people that slandered me. And the people that have caused me to have to run from death threats. I was camping on the lake with some friends, and they went home early after the first night, and I was going to stay a second night by myself in my tent. And there was a drug gang that was camping there next to me. And one of them came out and told me to get out of there. It was a girl, like 15, 16 years old. There was a bunch of drug people there. She told me to leave. My mother wouldn't be happy that she wouldn't be too happy that you're camping here with us, near us. So I'm not. I'm camped here. You guys set up your tents there. I was already here when you guys got here. Well, the tent that was up above mine happened to be a young lady who was an undercover deputy sheriff that was infiltrating that gang to later on get them all arrested, teenagers and adults alike. She pulled me aside, broke cover to tell me, to warn me, these people are planning to beat you with sticks tonight till you're almost unconscious, and then they're going to burn you to death while you're conscious. I said, thank you for the warning. She goes, you better leave. I said, no, I'll handle it. And there would have been 13 dead people that night. But she kept after me until finally I left. I packed everything up, put it in the car, and went to a different county. My dad was against me for a while and took part in a recorded conversation that I kept after him to acknowledge, because he was in the state of Pennsylvania. I said, Dad, you need to let me know now if you took part in that, because you're in the state of Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is a two-party state. Both parties in the conversation need to know that it's being recorded. And the beeps every 14 seconds was a very strong indication that it was being recorded. Did you know that it was being recorded? And he would lie every time and say no. Of course, I later found out who it was that did the recording. And it was someone that used to be a friend of my mother, that actually she was a colonel in Civil Air Patrol. And she was the senior commander, and for a short time before I got out of it, I was the cadet commander, the highest ranking cadet there. I was a staff sergeant in Civil Air Patrol. So, my mother was a captain in Civil Air Patrol. And so when that happened, I gave my dad several opportunities to let me know that he had been involved in that, and that he had been involved in that recording against me, that was being done as evidence against me. And so when I gave him enough chances, and that was it. I broke from him. And from 2011 till 2014, when he got murdered, I never spoke to my father again for 3 years. And next thing I know, I get an email from my oldest brother telling me to call him. And I called him from my house in Mexico. And he said, Philip, Dad's been killed. When the other day, Laura came home and found Dad dead in his car. And then Eric came home later from his work. And my sister-in-law works for the federal government. My dad had come down to investigate and to visit them, of course. But one of the things he was doing was going around asking questions about the death threats against me and trying to get to the bottom of all the slander and everything that happened against me. I think he'd come around because he realized that those people that slandered me Their story kept changing, kept morphing. Mine always stayed the same because I didn't have to think about it. I just told the truth. I could tell the truth right now, tell everything. And it will not vary from what I told every point along the way because it's the truth. I don't have to make anything else up like they did. And my dad figured it out. And he was going down to get information. And a source told me that he was asking for information and he was being put off. And he said he was going to come in the next day with an FBI agent. After that, they followed him to my brother's house. And they shot him in the head in his car before he had an opportunity to get out of his car. My dad's body was cremated immediately. No autopsy was done. My dad's car was crushed immediately before an investigation could be done. The sheriff's department covered it up. When there's a techie deputy sheriff for that county that has been harassing me online for 15 years, that had actually broken into my email account and erased every email that I sent about this thing. And he broke into my friend Danny's email account and other people's email accounts, and he erased out of their inbox the emails that I sent that incriminated them. Now they've found me. And I'm here now to post this video to say that my life is not yours to play with. I will absolutely defend myself with an extremely heavy hand. If I feel my life is in danger, I will act. And I will stop the threat. Those people that murdered my dad, when they found out that I knew that they had done it, and that it was starting to get out in the public that they had done it, that they had shot my dad in the head and murdered him while he was investigating the threats that were going on against me. They threatened, after that point, they threatened my brother and his wife to change their story, to say that they were standing 50 feet away from my dad's car when my dad committed suicide. Okay, which is horse crap, because they had already told everybody that Laura came home first, found Dad dead in the car, that Eric came home later from his work, that Dad was already dead, Laura had gotten home first, then my brother Eric came home later. In November of 2017, I went up to see my brother and to get my guns and stuff, and he just kind of pretended like he forgot that I'd asked him to get my guns and my bow from him, which I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go up there again and get my stuff from him, which is legally mine. He's offered to sell me the guns, and when I said no, he breathes out and looks down, because he, for some stupid reason, thinks I'm a threat. I'm not the threat. The threat is those people that have started this against me. And I will deal with the threat. I'm capable of dealing with it now because I do have weapons here in the house where I'm at in Texas. I prefer to handle this by the law and get these people indicted for murder. It's funny that the feds know all about this. Hold on. Okay, 15-second break. The feds know all about this. But yet somehow the county and city police are still following the contrived crap that's in their files. What I don't understand is that the feds know about this, but they haven't done anything. What are they doing? Are they doing an investigation like they said? Are those two attorneys and that deputy sheriff and that one attorney's wife who works for the other attorney who was looking for revenge against me for her husband losing his license for a year, are they going to be going to prison soon? Well, because nobody else is acting, I'm going to act. I've got to do something. And yes, they will be going to prison. And karma has taken a good toll on this. The sheriff that was part of the harassment against me, he lost his job. He ran for police chief of the city and lost because the people didn't want a sheriff. They didn't want a police chief that goes around handing out business cards to 16 and 17-year-old girls saying, hey, give me a call. I'll come party with you. And doesn't matter, he's getting older. He doesn't look like he did when he was a kid. And those kids, it kind of scares them a little bit. He's going to go down for his portions of this. Like the illegal, like I had already tested for and gotten a job, contractor job with the federal government, which that's what I had been doing, working as a contractor for the federal government for a number of years. And I got a good job that would have paid about $120,000 a year to start. Hired. Passed the first part of the FBI background check. The second part of the FBI background check came exactly at the same time that all this slander started going around about me. And I had to tell the company, hold off. And I didn't. Still, 6 years later, 5.5 right now, I have not gone to work for them. As badly as they want me, because I tested the highest of anybody that's ever tested. Not until this thing is straightened out. But see, the thing is, when I do the lawsuit, I got hired. That job would have paid $120,000 a year to start. And in 6 years of that, that's $720,000 of lost wages. And by the time the suit goes through, however long it takes, 2, 3, 4 years, that's another $120,000 a year for each one of those. As I said, I'm not playing. And those people the more they slander me, the more they try to hurt me, that's just more ammunition that I can use in the courtroom against them. I'm going to start naming names pretty soon. I'm going public. When a little while ago, towards the middle of November, this is January 1st, 2018, about a month and a half ago, Chewy got busted for trespassing And they found his meth stash, and they put him in prison. He's a 3-time loser. He was a 2-time felon already. Felt like he couldn't get a job somewhere doing something legitimate, so he would just sell meth to 15-year-old kids. And my neighbor. He caused my neighbor Nathaniel to lose his house. Got him all high. And Nathaniel will come over here, knock on my door late at night, stand outside wheezing, because he couldn't breathe right because he was so high on meth. From the meth that he bought from Chewy. And he spent so much of his money on Chewy's meth that he lost his apartment, couldn't pay his bills. A few days after Chewy went to prison, went back, I was walking over to the Burger King over there, across the street. And there is a bus stop, 76659, that is in the far corner of their parking lot. And a voice yelled from there, "Put me on the internet! Put me on the internet, motherfucker! Put me on the internet!" What? So I went inside and I said, well, if they were talking to me, which I think they were, I said that was somebody that knows, because I've already been warned by Will Alt in the back there, in Building 6, that people back there have been looking at those videos of me putting Chewy on there, about Chewy threatening me, his threats, all of his threats. They've all been seeing those. And I put one video of where Chewy had been tenting and showed his tent. His tarp, I should say. So I said, I'll wait a minute, and then I'll stick my head out again. When I stick my head out, if they say it again, I'll go over there and ask who said it, find out why. Stepped out, sure enough, here it comes again. "Put me on the internet, motherfucker!" And then a threat followed that. So I walked over there. I said, "Who said that?" And everybody's just kind of silent for about 2-3 minutes. And there's Candace and her boyfriend Jacob. Jacob wasn't there because he was in jail right then for slapping her around, and an off-duty San Antonio police officer saw it and recorded it with his phone, and he called 911, and police responded, and they took Jacob and put him in jail for slapping Candace around. Well, Candace was there. Curtis was there, the guy that I was trying to lead to the Lord. He's a small-time, low-level meth dealer. And then there was the guy, I don't know his name, he's a big guy with hair. He spoke up too, because he'd seen the video. Someone had showed him the video. Doesn't even live here. He's one of the druggies, and almost everybody that was there at that drug stop, we call it the drug stop, that bus stop, that was there. Almost everybody that was there was people that hang out at the person who made the threat. He finally admitted it. They hang out at his apartment at nighttime, and they go over there to get high on heroin, and then they leave. Or some of them spend the night, and then usually about between 6 and 8 in the morning before the staff gets here, you can see them filtering out, sometimes up to a dozen of them filtering out of that apartment. So finally this guy gets up, gets in my face, and says, "I'd fucking kick your ass right now. Did you put Chewy on the internet? Did you put Chewy on the internet?" Wasn't even talking to me nice at all, not asking me a question. He was being menacing and harassing, threatening, and he was bullying. And it was amazing how that all the information about who that guy was, I'd seen him here and there. I'd seen him putting paper in the exit gate reflector to keep the gate open so his druggy friends can come in and out to his apartment to do their drugs. And I never talked to him. I'd never, ever talked to him. The first thing he ever says to me, ever, was he's going to fucking kick my ass. That's his words. And so I just kind of stood my ground and waited for that first strike to come from him, and it never came. And that night, a lot of information about him just fell into my hands. It was amazing. I found out who he was, where he lives. His name is Tim Ball. He lives in apartment 1008. And according to the people that spoke to me, they said he was a heroin dealer. And that the people would come, and there's a guy in apartment building number 8 that confirmed it. And said that some of the people would come and shoot up heroin right outside his daughter's bedroom window. And they were coming from Tim Ball's apartment. I told him, next time they do it, next time you see them shooting up out there, you call the police and tell them where they're coming from. Okay, including the threats that Tim made against me, that he was going to kick my ass. Put me on the internet, motherfucker. I'll kick your fucking ass. Okay, well, wish I would have been recording that. But there was enough witnesses there. They all heard it. And Brenda Hughes, the security guard for VIA, told me before about him. Didn't connect the dots who it was, but then she confirmed it that night, said that was the guy. That was him. That's the one that stalks me, goes to all the bus stops where I'm at, asks me which bus stop I'm working at, and he comes and he sells drugs at those bus stops, thinking because I'm his neighbor and that maybe he thinks I'm stupid, then I'm not going to do anything about it. And she said every time he shows up, the incidents of people being stoned and high and on heroin and needles being all over the place goes up through the roof because he's there, because he visited. That's her words to me. That's what she said to me. And I reported that to VIA, and they're investigating him. Every time he gets on the bus. Someone shared with me, because I guess they're friends with him on Facebook, they shared with me his photographs of his profile, where he went to school in Illinois, and that he's here. And I know for a fact that Tim was watching those videos, because a few days before that, on November 11th, this was November 17th when he made the threats. November 11th was the day, November 13th was the day on Monday. November 13th was the day that Golden Corral does their veteran dinner. And I went there for a free dinner. I try to go every year if I can. And I went November 13th, 2017, and there was a World War II vet that was sitting at the table across from me, facing me. And when he realized that the national anthem was being sung, he stood up and he put his hand across his heart. It was wonderful to see that. And when they got done singing the national anthem, I panned the camera around as everybody was screaming and clapping and yay, like that. It was wonderful. Okay? One of the things that Tim Ball said to me at that drug stop, at that bus stop, was, "You're not the veteran, I'm the veteran," which meant he watched that video. He's been watching my videos. So he's going to watch this video too. And I'm here to tell anybody, any threat against me will be handled. I called the police and I made a police report that night. And I filed a police report against him, but I did not file charges against him. I'm saving that for if he tries it again. If he threatens me again, in any way, I will press charges against him. I was going to, because his threat was so volatile, getting in my face, threatening to kick my, well, he said, fucking kick my ass, that he was very angry at me, overly so, which led me to believe that he was on drugs when he was making the threat. I was going to have a I was going to file charges against him with the city, and as well as do a restraining order against him that he couldn't be near me, which pretty much means that he wouldn't have been able to live here anymore, because he would have had to pass within 100 feet or so of my apartment every time he came in or out. He would not have been able to live here anymore. He would have had to go. But one of the things that was told to me by several people, including the previous manager, Kyle, was that his power had been off. And that's an evictable, what they call an evictable offense against your lease. You can't not have power in your apartment. You have to have electricity. If you don't, you can be evicted. And he hadn't had it for a long time, and they've been trying so hard to get him out because they know about his drug activity here and the homeless people spending the nights there at his house and coming over to get drugs, and people taking stolen goods from Goodwill down to his apartment, and just, you know, all this stuff being told to me by the people that work here and the people that know him, and even by some of the people that spend the time in his apartment doing drugs, pretending they're his friend when they're talking to him, but then coming to me and telling me everything that they're doing in there. I handle threats with an extremely heavy hand, especially after my father got murdered. Because of that. Those threats against me. That's a warning for anybody who considers they want to try to threaten me again. And that's a warning against those in the other state, that if they don't get rid of the file that they're using to harass me here, if they don't do it in a very, very short order, you're going to find yourselves in serious legal trouble, and you will go to prison for murder. And you will go to prison for putting false files, and certain people will go to prison for a lot of things, doing illegal stuff against me. I'm not playing.